So we're going to do division of fractions and whole numbers today. So in 5th grade, we do division of fractions with whole numbers. In 6th grade, they mix it all up. You do mixed numbers, you do fraction divided by fraction. But in 5th grade, we kind of baby step our way into it and just stick to whole numbers, okay? When you see this, this will make a lot of sense to you and it'll be really easy. Let's say I have 3 candy bars and I want to divide it between some friends. Everybody draw 3 candy bars, 3 rectangles. These are pretty easy to knock out. Everybody have 3 candy bars? They don't have to be perfect. Just draw 3 rectangles. Well, I want to share my candy bars because I'm going to feel really sick if I eat all those guys. The candy corn pumpkins are driving me crazy right now. I can't go in the teacher's lounge because I keep eating them. I need to share my candy bars so I don't eat all 3. Because I will. So, I'm going to pause this. So I've got 3 candy bars. I don't want to eat them all. I'm going to share with you guys. Okay? And I want to divide them into fourths. Because I really don't need to eat that much candy. If I have 3 candy bars, can you divide those 3 boxes into fourths? Let's do it. I like to split them down the middle first and then split each half into half again. As long as you have 4 boxes, you're good. So I'm going to do cut, cut, cut. And I just broke all my candy bars up into little bitty pieces because I'm nice and I want to share with you. Really, I don't want to eat them all myself. How many candy bar pieces did I make after I got done dividing those 3 candy bars into fourths? Braden?
12.
12. Good. So when you get done dividing it into fourths, you can count all your pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 3 divided by 1/4 is 12. That's my answer. Now let me tell you something about dividing whole numbers by fractions. If you start out with a whole number and divide it by a fraction, your answer is always going to be a larger whole number. If I start out with 2 candy bars and I divide them into halves, how many pieces am I going to have? 4. My answer has always got to be bigger than what I started with. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you're doing these problems, if you get a fraction as your answer, but you started with a whole number, you did something really wrong, okay? Another way you'll see it in the book is they'll have number lines. The number lines get kind of confusing, especially if you're dealing with small fractional pieces. So I'm going to do the same 2 divided by 1/2 with a number line. So I'm going to draw my number line and do 0, 1, and 2. And I always tell kids, when you get to the number line problems and fractions, pretend you're looking at a ruler. If I do 2 divided by 1/2, I'm going to take each inch and I'm going to divide them each into 2 sections there. If I rainbow jump my way down the row, rainbows. How many rainbows did I make?
4.
4 rainbows. Because 2 divided by 1/2 is 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. The number lines are okay when you're working with the smaller numbers, but they get to be a big pain when you work with the big numbers. So this is a whole number divided by a fraction. Give me a thumbs up if this looks really easy. It gets a little bit more confusing when we switch them around and I do a fraction divided by a whole number. So let's just do 1/2 divided by 2. In order to create a model for this, I have to, and Caitlin, you were talking about this earlier, I have to show what 1/2 is. Because if I can't represent 1/2, then how do we know how big our half is? Half of $1 is a little different than half of $1,000,000, right? You have to know what you're talking about. So I'm going to start out with 1/2, and then I'm going to make a half of the whole. Does everybody see my 1/2? If I break that little piece in half, I'm going to create 2 smaller size pieces. What size is this tiny piece that I just made here in the corner? Good, 1/4. Because this tiny piece right here is 1/4 of my original whole, and this is what was tricky on that cornbread problem. 1/2 divided by 2 is 1/4. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
I'm going to show you another one with the model. Let's do 1/4 divided by 2. So I'm going to start off with a whole so I know what I'm talking about. It's really hard to draw fourths if you don't know what you're breaking apart. So I'm going to pretend I know exactly where this goes. And I'm just going to draw a little 1/4 box here. If I take a 1/4 and I break it into 2 pieces, what size is this tiny piece that I just created?
1/8.
1/8. Because if you imagine, okay, these are all my invisible fourths that aren't here. If I take all those invisible fourths and I split them all up again, this guy right here is 1/8 of my original whole. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
This is just another way to show it with the models. Now there's another way you can do this, and this is the race car way. This is the way most of you guys will probably end up doing, because when you get to the point where you're drawing 6 boxes and breaking them up into 18ths, it gets kind of hard to read them. So watch this very carefully, because this will probably be your favorite way. When I'm dividing fractions, say I have 1/5 divided by 3, okay? Can I let that 3 come to my fraction party? No, what do I have to do? He can't come to my fraction party unless he dresses up as a fraction, so make a fraction out of him, okay? We're going to keep the first guy. I like him just the way he is. He's perfect. Put him in a box and put a bow on him. Don't change anything. He is perfect just the way he is. Do most 5th graders like to multiply or divide?
Multiply.
Multiply, because it's a whole lot easier. We're going to change him. We hate him. We change him. We're going to cross him out and make him a multiplication symbol. Are you with me?
Yes.
All right. Now I got to take care of the 3. I'm going to flip him around so he's upside down. I'm going to put the 1 on top and the 3 on bottom. And I'm going to flip him. When I do this, I'm creating the reciprocal for 3/1. Reciprocal means when you take a fraction and you change it to the opposite positions. So 3/1 becomes 1/3. Do you see that? So I'm going to flip him. And I'm going to tell you But the kids that will miss these problems are the ones that are not going to write it down again. I'm going to write it down one more time as my new multiplication problem. Yay! So my new problem is 1/5 times 1/3, and my answer is 1/15. That's all we're doing, guys. The reason why we do this is because when we're doing 1/4 divided by 2, we're trying to figure out what 1/2 of 1/4 is. This is what we want to know. 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8. Remember how I said you would see this of word a lot when we do multiplying fractions?
Yes.
Oops, you can't see that, sorry. When I find 1/2 of 1/4, I'm really doing 1/4 and 1/2 multiplied together to find 1/8. I'm changing this guy into this to find out what 1/2 of 1/4 is.